Okay, guys, how you guys doing? So this is my first time doing YouTube because I've never done this before. So this will be my first time ever doing YouTube, and I'm really excited because if you guys don't know who I am, my name is Cynthia Hale. I am the CEO of FFT Helping Others and the Domestic Violence Rally. I'm the Domestic Violence Rally founder. Um, and kind of today we're going to be talking about financial abuse. That's kind of what we're talking about today, which is it's kind of a little bit of a hot topic. And, I wanted to kind of talk about it because a lot of people don't jump on this topic. And so I was like, you know what? This is kind of something I kind of wanted to talk about, especially on YouTube. A lot of people don't talk about it on YouTube or don't even kind of go on YouTube to talk about financial abuse because it's like, who's really talking about financial abuse even on YouTube? So I was like, you know what? Let me jump on YouTube, talk about financial abuse and what is financial abuse. And so let's jump on this hot topic. Okay, let's go to it, right? So financial abuse is something that people don't even want to even discuss. Why? Because it goes into a lot of patterns of like mental abuse, psychological abuse. It goes into patterns that people don't even want to even touch, right? And so the issue is that when you're in a situation of domestic violence and you are having an issue of domestic violence, it's still a pattern of financial abuse. It still goes into a really deep issue of money problems, identifying yourself with financial abuse, and people just don't want to touch that. They just don't want to touch it. They just don't want to come close to it. They don't want to touch it. They're just like, Cynthia, listen, financial abuse for me, identifying myself with financial abuse, don't want to touch it. I'm a victim. Listen, victims of financial abuse, they come into like a lot of verbal and even physical assaults. For real, it's a fact study. Like Centers of Financial Security, they said that 99% of domestic violence cases involve themselves in financial abuse. Okay, once more, financial abuse is often a first signs of domestic violence and domestic abuse. Consequently, knowing the identity of financial abuse, it's critical for safety and security. Not for nothing, guys, but a lot of people, they don't even want to relate themselves to that because a lot of people are looking at it and going, well, you know what? A person who's facing domestic violence doesn't even want to face the fact that they are dealing with domestic violence. Nah, brother, let me explain something to you. Because the issue of this is that people who are dealing with domestic violence or the people who are facing an issue of financial abuse or whatever the case may be, they're already facing domestic violence. And what you don't seem to understand is these people, a lot of us who are facing, a lot of people who are victimized, let's get to the word, victimized, or having issues with victims of, who are acquiring financial abuse, it's because it's a control issue. Verywellmind.com says financial abuse involves controlling a victim's ability to acquire, use, or maintain financial resources. Those who are victimized financially may be prevented from even working. They also may have their own money restricted or even stolen by the abuser. And rarely do they have completed access to the money or other resources. When they do have money, they often don't even have their own account, or every little penny that they want to spend, they can't spend. Even their forms, like their financial abuser, may even vary the situation to situation. Sometimes the abuser may use subtle tactics like manipulation, while other abusers may be like oversert or demand or intimidate them. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like the abuser may use little things or little tactics, you know what I'm saying, to abuse them. And so what we see is that the abuser might want to manipulate them from even little things. You know what I'm saying? From little tactics or whatever the case may be, because he may not want to approach that situation, or he may want to intimidate them from not even utilizing their account or their money or whatever the case may be, because he might want to, intimidate them or intimidate her or him. It doesn't matter who it is. Let me make sure that I use the right term, because it could be anybody, right? And so here's the problem, is that at the goal end of it all, it's about a control issue in the relationship. Money is a real big factor. And the thing is, the financial abuse, most of all, it's a power and control, keeping the victim trapped in an abusive relationship. Resources says that the victims are concerned about their ability to provide financial resources, sometimes for their children. And right now with COVID-19, the reasons for women or abusive, partner, is that they've been devastated. Victims are inadequately unsure whether they're able to leave their homes, whether they've been emotionally abused, they're not able to provide food, their necessities, and unfortunately, sometimes they're left with vulnerable resources. They can't access money, they're not able to access credit cards, they're not able to access financial resources or financial assets. They don't have access to their homes, they don't have access to even their vehicle, and that safety plan that they were thinking about having, they don't have. And particularly, the abuser is partial to violence, and they victimize their needs, and leaving the survivor or the victim with unstable ways to safety. And it's difficult for that person without money or credit card, and leaving that person without having to provide for a way or a means to leave permanently. It is an exchange for that person to say, I can't leave, finding a way to be safe or find affordable housing. It struggles for that person to know, where am I going to find food? Where am I going to find clothing? Where am I going to find transportation? Especially if that person is disabled, or doesn't know exactly where to go when they have to leave. And so that's the problem, especially when that individual has to, leave, or you know, um, especially when that individual has to find, um, its resources immediately, you know. Um, Sorry. I'm like I'm trying to get this stuff really quickly. So what we find is that, sorry, I'm gonna get right back to you guys. Hold on, let me I'm like, I lost my train of thought for a second. Hold on, I lost my train of thought. And so when we have to like access, these, resources, especially when we have to find the resources that are necessary, especially for people who are in need, there is none. There is none at all, especially for the people who are in, for our survivors. And victims often spot unemployment, like victims often are in need, like especially if an abuser is talking about, well, you can't you can't go get a job. That's just period point blank. I'm not going to let you get a job. So they ruin like employment records for them. They ruin their credit history. They're minding legal issues for them. They financially ruin them. It's very difficult for them to establish their independence and long-term security for them, especially if they want to leave on their own and they're ready to like leave the abuser. And that's the tactic that the abuser will do. They will isolate the victim financially, and, they will trap the victim and trap them into a relationship and without their resources. So they will tell them, they will lead them in an extreme situation, specifically certain women who can't identify with financial abusers, in which it will escalate and strip them of their credit history. So the abuser won't have a good credit, or the woman won't. It will perpetrate so that the abuser will have, regardless of the abuser's percentage, it will be a tactic to consider, wait a minute, I will exploit them. There's some tactics in which, from what psychologists say, they will try to control the access of money, whether earned or saved, using assets to the personal benefits without asking. They will take money or use credit cards without permission. They will ruin the credit history by running up limits and then not paying the bills. They will claim to the money or pay without, utilizing it. They will hide money and not tell the victim. They will demand, if the victim is working, they will demand paychecks or passwords or credit cards. They will expect the victim to pay the bills or obligate it. Now, this is all Psychology Today, guys. I'm just reading it. They will, and I'm also reading it from verywellminds.com, so you guys can read it. They're using offers to help, with the budget or financial decisions. I covered gaining control over finances. They were required to bail them out during physical situations. They will confiscate the paycheck or other resources of income. They will intercept your bank statements and other financial records. They will even threaten to lie to officials and claim cheating or misusing benefits. Now, that happens a lot when it is somebody who doesn't have their legal papers here, especially somebody who is legally not here in the United States, whether it be through their visa, or if they're working here through their, they're waiting for their legal paperwork, and the other person is legalized here and the other person is not illegal here, but if that person is just waiting, if they're here on a work visa. And so a lot of times they'll threaten them and say, I will call ICE. If you do not do what I say, I will call ICE on you. And so a lot of times these people will threaten them. And so that happens often. And so, helping that, making that person and threatening them and saying, hey, if you don't do what I say, I'm going to call ICE on you and I will have you deported. A lot of times that does happen, and so a lot of times, the spouse or the individual will control the ability to earn the money or gain the access of the income's potential. They'll criticize and even minimize their job or career. Let's say the one person makes more money than the other and say, oh, well, your job ain't nothing. You don't really do nothing. They'll pressurize or make that person quit because of the children, or make excuses for them. Oh, well, you know what? You should stay home because the kids really need you. You should be here. You know what I'm saying? I mean, look what's going on at home. What's going on? Like, you're not tending to everything at the house. Like, look what you're doing. Like, a lot of times that will happen. Telling you where you can and cannot work. Like, like, you should be working here instead of there. Why aren't you working here? Like, what's going on? Like, that happens a lot. Sabotaging your work responsibilities. Like, look what you're doing. Like, you're not tending to your work. Like, why are you not, you're not really paying attention to your work. Why are you really working here if you're not paying attention to your work? That happens a lot. Harassing you at work by calling and texting or stopping by all the time, like constantly calling you. That's not only emotional, psychological, or mental abuse, but it can also harass you at work. So where your boss can say, you know what, your husband or your boyfriend or your girlfriend is constantly calling you here, and that's just over the limit. I think that it's time for us to let you go. you know and that has happened. And not only that, there's a video that has come out about a woman who actually got murdered by her boyfriend. It was either her boyfriend or her husband, because he was constantly calling and then texting, and then la la la. She even switched her job, and whatnot. I think she works for T-Mobile. I don't want to say the name. And then she did get murdered finally, because it was just too much. But the boss was trying to help her. But also preventing you from working by hiding your keys, unhooking your car battery, taking your car without permission, or offering to babysit, then not showing up. That happens consistently. I remember my ex, he used to take the spark plugs off, take the air out of the tires, doing things that were just unnecessary. And that happens often just because they want to be controlling, they want to take access, they don't want you to go anywhere, they don't want you to do anything. And that happens so consistently, and it happens all the time, because they want you to be and access to them all the time. They want you to be there, you know? And so that happens. They criticize every financial decision you make. They reduce your freedom, your plan or budget. They make large financial decisions without your input. They reduce your collaboration on finances. Well, no, I don't think that you know how to budget well. I think that maybe I should do it, hiding or taking funds and putting them in a private account, things between partnerships. If you are either dating or marriage, well, not dating, but if you're married or something, you guys should collaborate, on finances. That should be something in which collaboration should come into play. Insisting that you share your income by refusing to share theirs. Oh, well, you know what, I think that maybe you and I should make decisions together. You and I should make decisions together. No, 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 but my money's no, 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 no. I think you and I should make decisions. Controlling the purse strings or establishing unrealistic limitations of allowances. That's a big deal. Requiring you to for your account for every penny you spend, but he may ask or she may ask for receipts for every single thing. Well, you know what? Why'd you spend like $20 on a piece of pizza? Well, you know what? But it's why'd you spend that money? I don't understand. That's a big problem if you have to account for every single dollar, or having double standards when, if they spend something but you don't spend something. That's a very double standard. Having a double standards on what you spend and what they spend. They have to spend money on entertainment or dining out or criticizing you when you make similar purchases. That's a big thing. Withholding financial information like passwords or things like that, limiting your access to over financial pictures or couples, or withholding money from you, requiring you to ask for money. Nobody should require you. If you're an adult, you should not require, demanding that you ask permission before spending money, but not consulting you when he make or she makes purchases. Requiring that you make large joint purchases, especially when it comes to loans or cell phones or anything like that. Limiting your access to money by not allowing you to have bank accounts. Forcing you to sign financial documents without your exploitation. That is exploiting you. You should not be exploited on anything, and you should not sign anything at all. Everything should be joint. Threatening you to cut you off financially. That's also exploitation. becoming enraged over money, and then engaging in other forms of abuse like name calling you or physically abusing you emotionally, physically, psychologically, anything like that. Invading or refusing to pay child support. Seen that a lot of times when a person is supposed to be paying you child support and sitting there and abusing you and say, well, you know what? If I don't see the kids, you don't let me see the kids, I'm not going to pay you no child support. And, and thus this happens. A lot of parent alienation happens that way. And so withholding children because of money, that's a lot of financial abuse too, where they withhold children. So, and it can happen both ways, whether mom or dad, it doesn't matter. And children get involved because of money. Children should not be involved because of money ever. And also dragging out divorces too in order to cripple finances. That's ridiculous. I mean, it can happen both ways too. It can happen both ways. And that's a financial situation too, where both parties both parties abuse each other. um and so, if sometimes when you suspect that your partner abuses you because of finances, because sometimes it can be very hard because you're just like, oh, well, it happens. I don't know. Maybe it does. Maybe it doesn't. BusinessInsider.com stated that there was a woman who was asleep on a mattress for an entire pregnancy because she was told that they couldn't afford a bed, despite her husband making about $8,000 a month. And when she researched the book, she was coming at it from a therapist's perspective of what she thought of financial abuse was looking like. But after more than 400 people responded with their story, she realized how broad the topic actually was and how insidious the abuse can really be. And what she said was, I think I asked the question about the lies and the threats and the basic needs because I had a feeling there were going to be some common themes, but I was surprised at how many different ways financial abuse showed up, she says. And I also thought I would hear more about entrepreneurs and business partners and financial abuse in the workplace. And I didn't. The majority of responses were personal. And so here's the thing. Financial abuse is not as common as we think because a lot of people don't look at it. They don't look at the perspective of financial abuse. They don't know it. They don't see it because a lot of times people aren't viewing it. They don't see the perspective of it because a lot of times people don't relate financial abuse to other things because it's so involved with other things. It's involved with mental abuse or psychological abuse or physical abuse, or it's involved with a lot of other things, especially because when a person is, let's per se say that she's disabled and she's trying to leave, she can't because she is dependent on her abuser, right? Or if that person has an issue, and she needs finance, or she has no finances and she has, let's per se, children, and she has to depend on her abuser because he's the only breadwinner, and her abuser has says, no, I don't want you to work, this is what I say and what says goes, and that's it. And so her abuser is, she has to literally depend on her abuser for anything, and he's watching the bank account, he's watching everything, and she's scared for her life. So how can she plan her safety plan, or if he's watching the car, or she's very dependent, or she's very scared, and a lot of times people will say, well, she could just leave anytime she wants. No, she really can't. So financial abuse is it can coincide and has the the specifics or the specs to other features of, per se, physical, mental, verbal, even spiritual, even spiritual. Because sometimes that individual, let's say the father is being abused by the mother, and let's say the father is very close and tied with church, and let's say that the father takes the kids to church, he loves church, he's involved, he has 4 kids, they all go together, but the mother is not involved. That's not her thing, you know but he tithes and he offers, that's his thing, but she watches every single dime that goes in the bank, and she gets upset. So everything is a very close, everything kind of ties in together. And so you have to be very careful, because he's just like, I really want to make this work. And so how do you make financial abuse, or how does this suspicion of partnering and financial abuse, how do you make this issue better? I don't know. So how does this discussion of financial abuse, how what are some specific things that make it better? Well, here's some things that could make it better. One, you can go and talk to a good counselor. First of all, not together, because you're going to, first of all, you need help. And yes, there's, we're talking about financial abuse and how, you probably don't have, the finances to maybe help yourself. But one, you need some assistance yourself. So once you can go and get counseling, therapy, psychological help, because you're dealing with one situations that you need assistance through. So you are going to need, assistance psychologically or therapeutically yourself, whether it be calling somebody, whether it be assistance for yourself, that you may be able to speak to somebody, talking to a therapist. And not all therapists cost money. Some of them are free, where you can call over a line. You can call a domestic violence hotline and just call the 1-800 number, 1-800-799-7233. Now, you can also call the mental health resources, for National Helpline database and the National Helpline database. And you can even go online, and they also have, the crisis text line. They have the child's helpline, whether you're dealing with your children that are being abused, or the National Alliance for Mental Illness, which is NAMI. You can call the Veteran Crisis if you're a veteran, the Trevor Project, the Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network, which is RAIN. If you want to call the crisis text line, which is text 741-741, and you can, text them. And you can, of course, you can also text the National Domestic Violence Hotline, which is text love is 2222522. And you can just, get in contact with some of these numbers, even RAIN, which is a Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network, which is 1-800-656-HOPE, and get in contact with some of them. Try to see about, and I will also link that all these copy these on the discussion, so that you guys will have every single one of these numbers on the bottom. That way you guys can contact every single one of these numbers, and get in contact with these assistants. And that way there's assistance for you and help for you, but not only that, what can you do other than counseling? Because you need counseling for yourself, of course. But other than counseling for yourself, you need private help, but you also need, assistance that will go further than that. You need, I always say that a person other than therapy, you also need, other than, getting yourself private therapy, you also need to find yourself. I go to my religious leader. I go to somebody that I can trust, somebody that's going to be able to help me, someone, confidentially, that you can find, that's trained, that's an advocate, for you financially, that you can say, listen, this is what I'm going through, this is what I need, I have no idea what I'm going through financially, but how can I go from being financially abused and maybe start going through the process of, maybe helping myself, and so these are certain things that maybe you need to talk to somebody through. And so finding either a financial advocate or finding a coach, that has gone through financial abuse might be a way to advocate for yourself. And also somebody who's trained under not only domestic violence, but financial abuse. And so both of those things might help you, because there's people who are, yes, domestic violence advocates, but also financial abuse advocates. So you need both. And also a therapist, a counselor, a leader, therapists that are trained. And again, I'm going to post all of this on the description so that you guys will have that. And having good open discussions. Now, if you are willing to talk this out with your partner and both of you really, now, if you're going through physical abuse and your partner's physically abusing you, I would suggest to call the National Domestic Violence Hotline or reach out to somebody that will help you to get a good safety plan so that you can, try to get through this, and so that we can help you through the process so that you can maybe, get out of your situation so that you can escape and find a good way to get out of your situation. Don't just leave immediately, because that is dangerous. Don't do that. We want you safe and we want your children safe. Make sure that you call 911 first. They're your first line of defense. Always call 911, first line of defense, but make sure that you're safe. So I'm leaving all the information on the bottom for you so that you can have it there. And I'm so glad that you guys came with me today, find out about financial abuse. Thank you so much, guys. Like I said, this is my first time. I can't believe I did YouTube today. But like I always say, you are beautiful. You are lovely. I love you. And thank God that God loves you too. All right, guys. Thank you again for coming in. Thanks again. And I'm glad you learned a little something today. All right. I think I'm going to go over to Facebook in a minute. All right. Bye, guys.